Okay, so no secret, AI-driven data center growth putting unprecedented pressure on the power infrastructure. It'd just be good to understand how Nyxium's Agentic AI platform is designed. I think it specifically addressed the siting and permitting bottlenecks facing new data center developments, and obviously we know time to market is critical. So yeah, just give us the high-level view of the platform.
Yeah, so Nyxium is a platform that helps developers in the data center space to identify and verify a good site for them. So the site that not just technically possible, but also realistically buildable and deployable on the ground. So we bring together geospatial intelligence, multi-agentic system, regulatory intelligence, and making sure that all the constraints to build a data center are being considered from the beginning of the decision making. And we put all that together in one decision layer. And that way, actually, they can screen out all the non-viable options early on. And the result is faster movement towards sites that are real chance to get built on the ground.
Okay, and I think I'm right in saying you've described the current challenge as an execution crunch rather than a technology gap. I guess that'd be good to understand, explore that a little bit, for certainly for the sort of hyperscalers and also the colo providers. What do you actually mean in practical terms? What's going on?
So the problem is no longer compute or chips for data centers. The real constraint is whether a project can actually get deployed on the ground. Right? In practice, that means that delays around power, interconnections, land suitability, permitting, and local acceptance become the biggest bottleneck for data center deployment. So it's physical and institutional rather than conceptual constraint, I would say. So for operators, that means growth plans depend less on strategy slides, more on whether they can secure deployable site fast enough.
Okay, and Nyxium, the platform, I think it combines geospatial AI, reinforcement learning, and regulatory intelligence. And how do those AI agents combine to compress? I guess typically we're talking what 12 to 24-month process, but I think you say you can compress it potentially into just a few months. How does that work?
So our AI layers actually comes on top of our data layer and also rule-based automation layer, right? So what we do is actually we have a comprehensive database of all the parameters and variables that requires to make that decision. That's really costly decision for data centers. And we have rule-based automation layers that uses machine learning and also rule-based algorithms that calculate the scores of the sites, of the candidate sites. So AI layer comes in actually to facilitate that happens and to make the process faster. So for example, screening a lot of data gets a lot faster with AI agents. So some of the examples of our data AI agents are actually screening, taking the what do you call it, detection done by geospatial intelligence layer and calculating the score from those decisions is one of our siting AI agents. And we have a permitting agents that pulls together a lot of policy and community sentiments from different social media channels across the internet and summarize them together to give you sentiment analysis of the communities around where you are building. So these are some of the agentic systems that we layer on top of our data layer and rule-based automation layer.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask a bit about certainly the community risk and stuff. So maybe you want to expand. So you got the data center developer and the platform. I think it highlights things like grid constraints, community risk, as you mentioned, and regulatory hurdles. But clearly it's also doing that early enough to materially reduce project risk. So you've already explained a bit. Do you just want to expand as to how you achieve that?
So it's not about actually how early we consider that. It's about even from the beginning of the decision-making process, all these factors has been factored in our pipeline. So we have already, for example, considered community sentiments and risks to communities in the beginning of the site decision-making. So access to power, policy changes, regulatory changes, timeline to permitting, all these important factors has been considered before even making that decision of suitable sites. So it's not just about giving recommendation for suitable sites or giving feasibility sites. It's about deployable sites, right? Which kind of sites actually can be actually deployable on the ground, factoring in all the possible constraints that can come your way.
Yeah, in terms of the outcome, I think you say that cost reductions of up to maybe $5 million per project are achievable. Be good to understand where do those savings come from? I guess you're avoiding delays, better sites. Yeah, just explain how that, what the benefits are, and I guess in that financial savings.
So that statement is not just from opportunity cost, it's actually coming from direct cost. That's the amount of money that some of the developers ended up spending just to make that decision. So just to screen out candidate sites, just to screen out all the non-viable sites, sometimes it can cost up to $5 million to engage different consultants for different layers, to have fragmented tools for the in-house team. So we haven't included all the opportunities, costs that come into that equation.
Okay, and I think I'm right in saying you secured a paid contract with the Kentucky Nuclear Economic Development Authority before your public launch. Just be good to understand how that sort of early validation has translated into credibility and sort of you raise your profile with the data center operators and the hyperscalers in particular.
So it shows that serious institutions are willing to pay for this kind of intelligence even before the public launch. By the time we started talking to authorities in Kentucky, actually we were in a very early stage. That gave us the validation that this solution is absolutely required in the industry for government, for public, and also private developers. And that gives us the crystal clear idea of what are the pain points to solve and what are the features and functionalities that we need to offer to solve these biggest pain points in the industry.
Okay, yeah, and to that point, I know you're in discussions with hyperscalers and other major developers of data centers. The feedback you're hearing from them be interesting in terms of their most urgent infrastructure constraints. I know, power seems to be the number one, but in terms of more granular things that are, causing them, should we say, some angst, if that's the right word.
So we're framing it in a way that power, permit, people, and policy. So these four things are the biggest constraints for any developers of any size in the data center space. Actually, not just in data center space, all the adjacent space of energy development to critical raw material mining to storage space. Everything has all these four major constraints when it comes to development deployability issue. So power availability, permitting timeline, and land is not, developers need land that is actually deployable, and that decision and that assessment of whether a land can be deployable or not, that's the biggest question, one of the biggest questions as well. So the broader message is that speed to deployable capacity matters more than just finding more parcels.
Yeah. And in terms of the energy, in particular, we've got nuclear and the SMRs, in particular, renewables and energy storage technologies. They're becoming increasingly tied to the data center growth. Just your thoughts as to how Nyxium can position itself within that sort of energy digital infrastructure nexus even, sorry.
So Nyxium sits at the intersection of digital infrastructure and energy infrastructure, right? So data center growth are increasingly depends on energy storage, energy development, not just real estate strategy. So we're building an intelligence system for where power, land, regulation, and deployment constraints are aligned. So that makes the platform relevant not only to data centers, but also to adjacent infrastructure like storage, renewables, and nuclear linked developments.
Okay, and in terms of the likely future, do you think agentic AI platforms like Nyxium's can become a sort of standard part of the data center development toolkit? I'm thinking similar to how BIM transformed the construction planning approach. Just your thoughts.
So I just want to be a bit careful about answering this question, because when we say agentic AI, it's not, you can't build a purely agentic system that can make this decision on behalf of you. So it depends on what kind of data infrastructure you are building behind the scenes, which kind of rule-based algorithms you're building the AI, feeding the AI system. So AI system can only come in on top of all these foundational layers to accelerate that process and decision-making process. So of course, platform like this will be absolutely indispensable for the industry. Number one, because scale and complexity of the infrastructure decisions are now too high for fragmented and manual workflow. We can't afford that fragmented, manual, repetitive task anymore because we are operating in a really urgent, high-stake environment. But the standard will not be won by AI. So it will be won by systems that are accurate, explainable, and operationally useful.
Okay, and maybe just finally, be good to understand the Nyxium roadmap. I mean, you obviously made a big impact already, but what are you looking at achieving over the next 12 months, whether it's further development of the platform or, just raising the organization's profile? What's on your agenda?
So we are actually really heads down on building the platform. So in a way that a platform that is reliable, accurate, and explainable and transparent platform that can actually make deployable decisions for the developers. We don't just want to help you make decision, but we want to make that decision on behalf of you in a way that is in the most transparent and reliable way.
Excellent. Well, I mean, it's been great to chat, and thank you so much for explaining what's going on at Nyxium and your thoughts as to how the data center industry needs to get to grips with the planning process. So really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Phil, and it's very nice to meet you. And thank you for spending the time with me.
No, thanks again for your time. Thank you.